Bellerin's off to PSG. Maitland-Niles is going to stay. Danny Ceballos could be rejoining the Arsenal. We finally settled the debate about what a player is actually worth for Arsenal on today's market. Let's jump into things. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode 5, I believe it is, of our TGT Writers podcast, where I'm joined by my 3 fantastic lead writers. First off, we got Owen. How you doing, mate?
Good. Really, really good.
You sure?
Just stressed, man.
Impression. It really was.
No, I was just saying pre-pod there, just how it's funny how everything in life just tends to hit you all at once. It was a 5-a-side last night, and I'm convinced I broke my toe. So,
right. If you want to talk about life coming at you hard, give me a second, and I'll reveal to talk to you about that. John, thank you so much for first of all laughing at me, and second of all for joining. I appreciate it, mate.
I was laughing with you, you know. That's how you have to think about it. You can't think about people laughing at you. Then you'll just be miserable. And it'll just make it even worse.
Oh, so lots of people are laughing at me. Is that what we're saying now?
Hey, you know.
There will be.
Yeah, they will be. They will be in a second.
Hey, thanks for having me on again. Glad to be here.
No worries, mate. Drew, always a pleasure, my beanie friend.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're good. We are good. So before we crack on with the real stuff, I did promise on a couple of shows prior to this that I would show people what I did this weekend, or rather what I didn't do is the main thing. Was supposed to drive up to the lakes, as people know. You got a tactical breakdown on Dumfries and on Sangara as well whilst I was away. But what I was doing was meant to be climbing and mounting until I introduced myself to this thing. This thing is what people know in the UK as a pothole. I don't know if you would call it anywhere else in the world. John, do you have other names for these? Just potholes? Yeah.
Pothole? Yeah.
Yeah, pothole.
So about half a mile from our destination, I decided to drive through one of these because I didn't see it. Somehow didn't see it. It was filled with water over the top of a crest, so it was quite unseemly. And it did this to my tyres, which was fucking wonderful. I just swore. Great. That's how angry I am. That's how angry I am. I'm actually swearing now. Unbelievable stuff. And then after we walked half a mile to the nearest pub to try and find a phone, because there was no signal because you're surrounded by mountains, we ran into this when I got back, which was great. Parking ticket, absolutely wonderful. And then 6 hours later, when they finally arrived, because we had to go back and forth, because they had no signal to tell us they had arrived, because there's no signal in the area. So we 6 hours later managed to get a recovery vehicle. So there we are, sitting on top of the recovery vehicle with the mountain in view that I was supposed to be climbing. Never made it because of this.
It would have been a really nice view if it wasn't for that parking ticket smack bang.
Yeah, pretty much. And then this is how my friend Ben was reacting after we finally got the car fixed. So, yeah. So it was an absolutely wonderful weekend for us. We had a great time to the point, when I swear live on a show that it must have been bad. So, yeah. Unbelievable stuff. So I hope that your weekend was a lot better than mine was. I did manage to catch the Community Shield. I suppose we can briefly touch on that. It's a game that kind of splits people in terms of how much they prioritise it as a genuine trophy. Let's have like a one-word answer on these. Owen, how do you feel about the Community Shield?
Okay, great. I can't do a one-word answer, but I'll just say this very briefly. As you see from the pictures I sent into the WhatsApp group, I was in a pub with about 50 Liverpool fans, and I was the only Arsenal fan in it, so it was absolutely unreal for me.
Well, there you go. I mean, you enjoyed yourself.
Too much.
Community Shield?
Yeah, I felt good about it. I mean, you can't draw too many conclusions. Liverpool lost the Community Shield last time around, and they still went on to win a major trophy. So, but I do think that the positivity from the players and Arteta speaks to the fact that they're building a culture of they want to win everything, doesn't matter what it is. And if you look at it in those terms, that's all that matters, and that's incredibly important. So, yeah.
John?
Hey, I mean, it's a trophy if you win it, right? So
Not if you don't.
right. So and that's kind of, if you're not in the competition. I thought it was hilarious that Spurs players were like making fun of us. Like, you have to actually win a trophy to get in that competition. So regardless of whether it itself is a trophy, like how are you going to actually
in my club?
It's absolutely mind-boggling, the kind of cognitive dissonance that they and mental gymnastics they have to do to try to throw that in our face. It's unreal. But look, we won it, whether it's a trophy or not. It was a fun match. We got to see some good stuff, and it's always good. Aubameyang didn't drop the trophy this time, which was fun. And that was a lot. That was a lot of fun. So they look like they enjoyed themselves, and I don't really care what anyone else says. That's all that matters to me. Learning to win and be happy about it. That as a team.
Yeah, for sure. Let's not really talk about the news. That's what we're here to talk about. The community shield was great. It's kind of done its bit now, and we've moved past it. And there's a lot of news to talk about, in fairness. I want to mainly focus on talking about market value of players and look into Bellerin. But before we do, the news broke that supposedly Danny Ceballos has agreed another year at Arsenal, which is great news. John, I mean, on that, he was so integral to Arteta's sort of style of play towards the end of his first season in charge. What does Ceballos, John, mean to you for him signing this season?
I mean, for me, he was such an amazing part of our midfield, and it was especially after the restart. Right, I thought that in the beginning he started off really strong and then petered away, but like the whole team was kind of doing that, so I didn't read too much into it. But after the restart and with Arteta kind of maybe lighting the fire under him a bit, we saw an extremely technical, very aggressive, very motivated player that I think was able to bring a dynamic and dynamism to our midfield that we were missing since I think Ramsey left. Like this nonstop engine. I wouldn't really maybe consider him a Ramsey player, but in that role, that kind of technical, cutthroat-ish. I don't know how exactly what you want to say about it, but that aggressiveness in the midfield, I think, mixed with the technicality was something that we were missing. So to get him to sign again, I think is something big for us. And it's clear he likes the clubs. You saw the celebrations he had that he was posting remotely to Aubameyang's goal and everything like that. So you can't really, he seems to like it here, and if you get him for the right price, he's definitely a player that's already shown that he can help the midfield, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, that seems like a no-brainer. Let's say we strengthen our midfield with like Partey or whoever, he's still going to be able to help out one way or another, and it's not unclear. It's not clear really whether he would even be excluded from the midfield, even if we do get those kind of players. Maybe there's a way to fit them together, and I'm sure we could discuss it later. But I think it's a good signing all around, and I'm really happy to know that he's going to sign again.
Yeah, me too. I'm absolutely buzzing about it. I really am. I said that we needed to make it a priority over other players, like Aouar and Partey for me. Just getting in someone that's already transitioned to the club, that's played under Arteta, and knowing what the system is about is so integral. And he was such an important part of us, sort of redemption end to the season too. Before I get the other guys' thoughts, a massive thank you to M. Yusufi. Thank you so much for joining up as a member. You can also do that by clicking the join button to join a great group of lads and Owen as our members group, and you get access to exclusive content. You even get the chance to appear on the show too, and there's going to be 2 opportunities this month for expert members to come on the show. So I'm going to be putting out a message about that very soon on the community tab, which you'll find on the main dashboard of the channel. So make sure you keep an eye on the community tab and turn those notifications on if you're expert members to see those. But thank you, yes, and for Yusuf for joining up. Now, Drew, something that was brought up in the chat just now was the fact that the loan deal is just wages and there's no sort of fee that's going there. Yes, last time we didn't pay all his wages and we are this time, but the fact we can spread that sort of money cost around the whole of the year surely is a massive boost to our transfer activity this summer.
It'll be a big boost. I think fans are looking at the no buy clause, whether if it's optional or mandatory, because I don't know, maybe I think people are starting to realize that maybe Ceballos has a future elsewhere. I think that maybe Real are going to look at him this season and say, if he quite performs, they might actually look to bring him back. So I think that's maybe a lot of people talk about the angst about not having that clause. And if not having that clause in the deal was the only way we were going to get him back for this season, I'm fine with it. I think the way he grew into the first team, the way Arteta rates him, the way he's settled with the teammates, a lot of his performances on the back end of the season as well. he's the kind of player you need for this team. So I'm fine with it. We just we take it as we come. If we can't end up getting him long term after this coming season, then there are other midfielders in the world. But for now, I think, given how he performed and how he settled, he's going to be pretty crucial this season, and that's kind of all you need to worry about. You have to worry about just this season for right now. So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, how do you think this affects sort of the rest of the midfield business? Now we've got Ceballos in, do you think the club would still look to bring in 2 more midfielders, or is it just the one, do you reckon?
I would say that this probably doesn't alter our plans to bring in the targets that we're looking. Simply the fact that there is no huge loan fee, it's just wages. And when you look at the players that were starting to move out, you'd expect there to be more, but we've already seen the likes of Mkhitaryan leave, who was in around 180 grand a week. So Ceballos' wages are really more than covered for that there. In terms of his place within the side, I actually think that we're going to see a better Ceballos, as you mentioned the other day, Tom. Much as Ceballos' football was played under Unai Emery, and we can all agree that Unai Emery's football is bland at best. So it was really sucking the life out of him, I think. And one thing that I would say is that I think what we have lacked at Arsenal for a long time is we constantly have little bits of the jigsaw, but we never have the full thing. And what we need now is players to complement other players. We might look at our side and think that we're miles off, when actually we're maybe only one, maybe like a Partey away, or a Gabriel away, and things automatically start to click, almost like Liverpool with Van Dijk. So the only thing I would say as well to support Ceballos coming in as well, rather than, like, let's say for example we don't go and get Aouar, I would really not be overly annoyed, and because I remember, I think it was 2014 on deadline day, we had been linked with Radamel Falcao coming into Arsenal on a loan deal or a permanent deal that was sort of being dished, but we really were sort of progressing as the favourites to bring him in, and the fan base was just ecstatic about the opportunity of him coming and playing for us. And then he ended up going to Man United on a loan, and we purchased Danny Welbeck on the same day. And I remember the fans were a meltdown. But look how that worked out. Just because you're good somewhere else doesn't automatically mean that you're going to hit the ground running in the Premier League, like we've seen with so many players. So I know I sound like a hypocrite, because I do think someone like a Partey hits the ground running. But what I will say is Danny Ceballos has proven his worth, and it's excellent, and it just shows that the pull that we are starting to have, and the belief that people are starting to have within the project of Mikel Arteta. Because I actually feel that given the circumstances at Madrid, Danny Ceballos probably had a route into the first team this season with Madrid, and the fact that he has turned around now and he's buying into the Arteta project, and although there's no obligation or option to buy, one thing we know for sure in nowadays game is that players have massive pull. What players want, they tend to get, and just because there's no option at the end of this deal doesn't mean that the possibility of us securing him on a permanent basis is impossible.
I think that the deal is just going to enable us to do so much more than I was really worried, in fact, that we'd have to spend, say, 25, 30 million pounds to bring Ceballos in permanently this season, which would have such a big impact on the market that we could do. And just by getting him for a season, I know it's not permanent as of yet, and I know that there's no option, or if there's no sort of long-term project with Ceballos as of yet, but having him in next season is a bonus, a massive bonus, and it doesn't impact our transfers nearly by anything. And it is just a really, really good player to just keep in the squad. Let's go on to sort of the meat and gravy of the show then, and talk about the biggest news that was revealed yesterday by both The Guardian initially and The Athletic, confirming the news as well, about PSG's interest in Hector Bellerin. Now, what I found surprising, and we're going to talk about player value and market value and how they differ, but for me, when you look at the criticism that Hector Bellerin got throughout the season and when he returned, and even currently, and that people were willing to see the back of him, and then I saw a lot of the same people demanding upwards of £40 million for Hector Bellerin, and I couldn't quite marry the two opinions together. John, what are you surprised, first of all, by the interest from a club of the size of PSG, and the 25 million price tag that's going with it? How do you feel about that?
I am not surprised by by PSG's interest. I think they need a right back, and Bellerin has shown that he's done it previously in the Champions League level. He's done in Europa League and in the Premier League, which is a much more physical, demanding league than it is in France. So I'm not surprised by the interest at all. I am surprised, believe it or not, by the price tag. And I guess when you look at it from a negotiation standpoint, the fact that they made that offer, it doesn't in itself not make sense, right? If I'm trying to buy a player for £50 million, let's say, I'm not going to start off with 49 million as my first offer, right? I'm going to lowball you, and I'm going to try to get your price down, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. That's how negotiations work, right? You want something for you're trying to buy something for $10, you offer 5. And then you'll probably meet somewhere around 7, maybe 11, whatever it ends up evening out to. But you're not going to go with your best offer up front. So it's no surprise that £25 million was the first number that we heard. I imagine it's going to be higher than that, probably around 30, 35. I personally think he would be worth more than that. And the reason I say that is because when you look at the market, at least when you consider what that player's value is, because you mentioned what the player will go for in the market and the value are two different things. It definitely depends on the specific avenue that you're selling them, or the context that you're selling them. Look at Chilwell, for example, a UK player who went in the Premier League for a lot of money. You have to look at the team that's buying him as well. PSG have a lot of money. Hector Bellerin is worth a lot of money to us in the Premier League. He's a homegrown player. He has Champions League, Europa League, Premier League experience, as well as domestic cup competition experience. To a team in the Premier League, he'd be worth a lot of money. The question is, will somebody be willing to pay it? And when you look at a team like PSG, they have the funds to do that. They're not an English team, so obviously you're not going to get that English player premium, but it's a question of value. He's worth more than £25 million to us. And I think he's worth more than £30 million to us. I think that, if we really wanted to sell him within the Premier League, we'd be able to make more than that. And we'd probably be losing money selling him abroad. But that's not something really the club's going to consider, especially, and this is the key. If that money is being used to invest in targets that we've identified, if the player wants to leave, fine. If he's okay with leaving, we have backup in Maitland-Niles. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Now the question is, what do we do with that money? We need to, if we sell him to invest it, I don't care if we sell him for less than he's worth, as long as the money's getting targets that we think are going to benefit the squad as a whole more than Bellerin is doing at the moment. I think that when you balance the two out, it needs to come out that way. It doesn't matter how much you sell him for, as long as you get money for your value, or value for the money that you spend based off of what you got for Bellerin's sale.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And I think that when you look at, especially about the point about what he's worth to us and what we personally perceive that value of the player compared to what he's actually worth on the market. And I think there's a couple of comments that kind of I want to highlight.
And while you're looking at those, one other thing, he has 3 years left in his contract. That's relevant as well.
Yeah, of course. Pandy says that Barca offered 40 million 2 years ago. That was obviously before those two big injuries, and the injuries will have an impact on the player's value and perception of his value from other players as well, or from other teams as well. 25-year-old, 3 years left on his contract, as John said, definitely something that will increase that value for sure. But then there are some other things that I don't necessarily agree with. One is the comparison of players when they move between clubs. Comparing, say, Chilwell being worth 50 million to Chelsea and saying that we then should be asking for 45 million doesn't work. You can't compare players' values, because their situations and the clubs that are involved in these deals means that changes. We've talked about this a lot, that Leicester are a team that don't need to sell their players. So when a team comes in for those players, they can play hardball. They can turn around and be like, you can have Chilwell, you can have Harry Maguire, but you're going to pay top dollar to get those players, because we don't need to sell them. Arsenal are in a situation where they need funds. They need funds to reinvest into the top targets. We've talked about it just before we came on air with Drew about Donny van der Beek and Arsenal, the fact that we were interested in him. And the agent has come out today and said that Arsenal simply couldn't get the money together that Manchester United are able to go in for Donny van der Beek. And if that's the case, Arsenal are clearly publicly known as needing money to get players in that they want. And that's why a player's actual value, or what John was saying about what he's worth to us, will differ on the market, and that will reduce his value to the 30s, to the 35s maximum. I can't see him going for any more than 35 personally.
I could.
Yeah,
it's PSG.
It's not just
it's PSG.
But Leicester.
Go on.
The other issue is that Chilwell's Leicester's really only left back. They have Christian Fuchs, who's 34 and not good enough to start for them, and then they have what's their third string left back? Luke Thomas, who isn't going to come in and replace Chilwell in the first year. They need £50 million for Chilwell because they have to now go out and try to replace.
He's also homegrown.
So they can demand
to
more.
a British club.
Homegrown,
Well, no, but that's what I was going to say. So Chilwell is a homegrown player going to an English club, right? There's going to be a premium on that itself. But, and this is what we're talking about, how the value of the player to us is also relevant. If we had sold him within the Premier League, then we'd be making more money than we sold him to PSG. I think that's offset by just how damn rich PSG are, and that if they really, really need a right back, we have a better stance in negotiating a higher fee for him, saying, look, you're taking away a young player that's on a long contract that has, that is homegrown status to us. If we sold him to someone within the league, we'd be making more money. So you got to up the price a little bit.
Do you not think that PSG are a little bit hamstrung at the moment with the amount of money that they've spent on Kylian Mbappe and Neymar, meaning that they can't necessarily spend that same amount? I know we talk about FFP as a bit of a laughing stock at the moment because of Man City, but they had to pay for Mbappe last summer, I believe, because of the loan that was initially the reason why he left Monaco.
Yeah, no, I think
150 million on Neymar. Am I wrong about that? I swear they paid out a lot last summer, the summer before last for Mbappe? Not 2019's 20 summer, the 2020-21 summer, but the 2018-19 summer. They had to pay a lot for Mbappe, and the year before that, they paid a lot for Neymar. Am I wrong on that? Or have I confused everyone?
Either way, I don't think there's an issue with them paying the money. It's ridiculous how much money they have, and it's almost like you don't. Financial play is a joke. So I don't think money's an object for them. I think that they know that. I think we know that, and I'm not one that gets like insulted by that 25 million offer. I think a lot of fans are, and I can kind of see maybe why, but. Of course, they're going to lowball you up front. It's just how it works. And I imagine it's going to be higher. Probably 30, 35 is what the final would be.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at how much they spent last summer. They bought Diallo from Dortmund for 28 million. They bought Idrissa Gueye from Everton for 27 million. Pablo Sarabia for 16. Keylor Navas for 13. They spent 85 million pounds, but they did sell 95 million worth of players last summer, which is crazy when you think about the players that left. Lo Celso left for only 20 million. Moussa Diaby went to Bayer Leverkusen for 30 million. He was a hell of a player now. And Nkunku went to RB Leipzig. And Soki went to Nice. And Gregor Kukoviak went to Lokomotiv Moscow. So I suppose there is that side of things where they can spend money if they want to, and that will increase. And we kind of talked about that with Manchester City and Nathan Ake. Nathan Ake, for me, is not worth the money that he left for, but Bournemouth didn't need to sell. They don't have to. Even though they're relegated, parachute payments will cover them for that period. And they knew they would have been able to make sales, and they knew people would have been interested in Ake, and Manchester City wouldn't have been the only teams that would have been. So that would have driven the price up. Owen, do you want to come in on this one? It's a tough one to talk about.
Yeah, I sort of disagree with you in terms of using other players to value, because it's like anything. I'm going to do a 2.5.
There you go.
Oh, he's gone.
What a perfect place to freeze your picture.
He's in full flow. Look at how he broke up at the start. So where is he?
Well, he was saying something really, really insightful, though. So
yeah, he was. I'm hoping that we get him back any second now. He's going to jump back in, having spoken a good 30 seconds, thinking he's in full flow, and then he'll return like, what happened? It's while we wait for Owen to reconnect or wherever he is. I think when you're looking at what's the value of players in general, what factors for you, John, would increase? We'll do both with you and Drew. We'll talk about, with the increase with you, what factors increase a player's value for you?
Well, first of all, I think you have to look at length of the contract. You have to, because that's going to determine what kind of bargaining power you have. Do we have to get rid of this player? I feel like experience is a big one. Obviously, when you're dealing with a player, you want to know, do they have experience in cup competitions and European competitions? I think you need to look at the statistics about their performances. You have meaning, do they actually contribute in a way that would justify a price tag? You have to look at their injury record. You need to look, is this going to be a viable, versatile, or what was the word I'm thinking of? A player that's not going to get injured for us, basically. When we pay for them, I think Vitality. That's the word I was looking for.
Sure.
And you also need to look at the market. What are players of similar caliber going for across Europe and in the league that you're working in? And then not only that, you need to look at what kind of backup do you have? Do you have enough? Do you have, if you sell that player, is there a backup plan, a contingency that you can set in place before that deal is made, whereby you know that you're going to have coverage for that? Or is there someone already within the squad that you're going to be able to utilize in an effective way that minimizes the damage of selling a player? Because listen, that's something to consider. And one intangible thing that we're never going to know the answer to, I think that like dynamics in the locker room is something as well. Leadership qualities, things like that. Are there intangible qualities of this player that makes them worth more money to a specific club that would detriment you and you could assign a dollar value to if they were to leave? I think all of those are relevant factors. And and I think you're also limited in the Premier League by the homegrown status. So you need to consider that when you're determining max squad size. I think you need 8 in order to have a max of 25. So that's something to consider as well. All of those are factors, I think, especially in a Premier League club.
So, Drew, then what are the reasons why Bellerin's value wouldn't necessarily be as high as a lot of people expect it to be?
You're asking me to debate an argument that I don't believe in.
That's why I asked the question.
No, he should. No, but the whole point is that shouldn't be an argument that anyone should be making. The only thing you can really look at him and ask if people would overpay is his injury record. But he's only had one serious injury, which most athletes have in the course of their career. It might not be for a full year, but a lot of athletes suffer injuries that have them out 6 months.
So do you not think the Arsenal situation brings his value down in the market?
I don't think it does. I don't think it should, because we can sell other players in other positions if we worried about funding. We could just sell Ainsley Maitland-Niles if we really wanted to. Wolves already put in the bid, so that's one of the prime examples. So it's not like there's just other players. I think if we haven't had any interest elsewhere, then maybe I'd agree with that argument, but I don't really think so. I think the injury is the only thing you can factor in.
Let me challenge you on it, because if a club knows that Arsenal need money, right? The club, PSG know that Arsenal must get funds to reinvest in the targets they want to sign. So when they're in negotiations with Arsenal, they'll turn around and be like, "We'll give you 25 million for Bellerin." Arsenal will be like, "No, he's worth more than that." And they'll turn around and say that, "Yeah, he might be worth more than that, but if you want to make money this summer on the player, you're going to have to accept a lower fee." And
yeah, but then you can counter that and say, well, you need a right back and you don't have one. We have one that you want.
I think that's money.
And they can counter it by saying, listen, this is how we need. That's not enough to if you're going to use that as a justification for us lowering the price, you're going to have to bring it up, because even with that as a justification, it's not enough. So they need to make sure it's still worth it. And
not just that, but there's no guarantee. And I think that the fans are really kind of and I guess this is kind of the Arsenal way. The fans are overestimating how good Ainsley Maitland-Niles can be as the first choice right back for an entirety of the season. He's never done it. So if you're actually, by selling Bellerin, you're actually risking your only recognized right back that has worked when he's fit. Cedric clearly is the backup. We don't know. It's not that I think he can or can't. It's how good he's going to. People always complain about the fact that Bellerin has a lower number of assists for his career at right back, but I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles has 2 assists over 40 appearances at right back, which is worse. This is a worse ratio. That's the first thing. I think they look at the fact that he's young, that he's versatile. That's all great things, but he's a better right wing back than a right back in my estimation. And there's no guarantee we're going to be sticking with a back 5 or a back 3, however we'll call it, for the duration of the season. We don't know. So there's a lot of questions around Maitland-Niles still being the first choice right back. There's no questions about a fit Hector Bellerin. He's one of the best right backs in the Premier League.
And
someone like PSG wants him. So
just to piggyback. Oh, sorry.
Go on. No, go.
I was going to just piggyback on that, because I think you raised an excellent point, and it made me think that not only are you going to risk Ainsley, who like you said, might have a question mark there, and you can debate whether you agree with that or not, but you're also taking away a very versatile squad option from us. Now, if Ainsley Maitland-Niles is going to be playing right back continually, then we don't have that player anymore as a utility player that he's shown to be excellent in. And I think that's going to affect valuation as well.
Yeah, I think I don't agree personally. I still think that Arsenal's need to reinvest any money that they make on a player will impact the club's ability in negotiations. I can't see how it wouldn't. I take your points on board, and I understand that there are factors that Arsenal can come back at them saying that PSG need a right back. But in general terms, not just specifically for the Bellerin case, it might be that need of a right back does counterbalance things in that specific case. But in general, do you not think that the club's need to get funds in affects how they can negotiate in a transfer scenario?
No,
Definitely. I think it does.
I think it depends on the club.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying in general, like it will affect. So with, say, PSG, it doesn't, because that situation is where PSG need a right back. But if you were just, it still wouldn't, because let's try and collect my thoughts. In terms of
let me give you an example. Bayer Leverkusen are completely screwed financially, yet they did not back off on how much they wanted to accept for Kai Havertz. It depends on the club. It depends on how you run. It has nothing to do with any other factors than that, at least in my opinion. If you're going to lose a player who's important to you, then you need to dig your feet in and say, we'll make do if we don't sell him. But if we're going to have to sell a key part of our first team, you're going to have to pay for the privilege to get him. That's my take. It always has been, because that's just kind of how my brain operates, which is why I side with the way a lot of German clubs do business. So that's an example.
I think also that comes from the point of view that you feel that Ainsley Maitland-Niles can't necessarily, well, not maybe he can't, but you haven't got the same confidence that he could play that right back slot, whereas the club might have the confidence that he could play that right back slot quite well. And in that case, the club might be more inclined, knowing that Ainsley is there to do that they might be willing to accept a lower fee for Bellerin.
That has to be true. That's got to be part of it. I'm just saying it is if I was the one making the choice, just as from how I analyze it, I'm not as confident moving forward. If the club is, then that's fine. But I'm also thinking of other factors that maybe they are. I don't know. I'm not in the room, but that's just how I would analyze it. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, I suppose obviously if the deal does happen, no matter what fee comes through, it'll be interesting to see what fee does materialise for me. Oh, and you were in full flow when you were.
I was just ready to fight with you, and now I'm even more angry. My internet's been screwing up on me all week, man, and now I'm infuriated. So sit back and get ready to be shouted at. No, so basically what I was trying to say was that I would tend to sort of respectfully disagree in terms of gauging off other sales as to how much a player's valued at. You know, it's like the analogy I was going to use was, if I have 2004 Ford Focus, and I want to sell it, the first thing I go and I do is I go on to Gumtree, I go on to sales sites, and I look at how much a 2004 Ford Focus is selling for. In the same way that if you have a right back in Hector Bellerin, you look at a player with a similar age profile, similar experience level, who's been playing at a similar level, and see how much they're selling for. I understand the circumstances are different. The one thing I would say, and sorry to ramble on with other analogies, is that you make a fair point in terms of you're not going to get them prices when people know you have to sell. And what I would say is, if you have a house and somebody you have a house and you have it up in the market, well, it's very easy for people to negotiate with you. But what I would say is that if you go up to somebody who's living in their house, no for sale sign up, and you knock their door and you say you want to buy their house, well, their price is going to be a lot higher. And it's the same thing with footballers. So you're right in terms of people know that we need to make money, and they probably know that Hector Bellerin is sort of expendable at this point. The only thing I can see good coming from this is the types of clubs that are interested in Hector Bellerin. You know, the likes of PSG and Juventus. The best we can hope for is for them to sort of get caught in a bidding war between each other, because pride tends to take over with a lot of these big clubs, and that can sort of hike the price up. So I think that's probably the best end result.
I'd agree with you if we were actively trying to sell a player. If you're actively putting a player on the market, your bargaining position automatically decreases because the clubs know you're trying to get it for him. Bellerin was not on the market. He wasn't on the market at all.
But do you not?
PSG have come in and said we need him.
But do you not think that? Obviously, look, we all know the rumors with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Sorry, Mainsley, blasphemous saying that on this channel. But with Mainsley, with that situation now looking to have taken a U-turn with him leaving the club, I can't see either of them staying. You know, and the thing is, look, people might turn around and say that we flip flop between points of views as to, a few weeks ago I was saying that yes, I would be open to Ainsley Maitland-Niles leaving, but the truth is that if you were to sit here and tell me that Hector Bellerin's leaving, well, I could find you 20 reasons why Ainsley Maitland-Niles would be a better right back for us than Hector Bellerin, and vice versa. If you were to tell me that Ainsley Maitland-Niles is leaving, I could argue a lot of points to say that Bellerin is the man to take us forward and right back. So I think there's pros and cons to both. The only thing that I would say is that if Ainsley Maitland-Niles is staying, and we were to shift out Bellerin, he would have to sort of be very settled in the fact that we need him to be playing that right back position. And in 6 months down the line, that he doesn't bring up them issues again of wanting to play centre mid or.
Yeah, I understand the points for both of them. I have a lot of faith in Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I feel that he is a solid option. Say, for me, you've seen his value exponentially increase this season. I still don't think he's worth upwards of 25 million yet. Anyway, maybe not even upwards of 20 million at the moment. And we kind of talked about that on the show in which we talked about player value. But I have a lot of faith in Arteta as a coach who could train Mainsley to be a better right back than he currently is. I thought we saw him in an Emery side where it just didn't work. It was a defensive system that absorbed and welcomed pressure. And I don't think that Arteta's playing that same style with the defence. I'd be interested. And I think that we've got the option that if he doesn't necessarily work, he will still be as sellable for me in a year's time, that we could then reinvest the money into someone that is a more solid right back option for the club. So I think there's
but then we're in a position where we need a right back, and then we're going to get charged for that privilege. So we've then dug our own hole.
We have Cedric there. If say he doesn't, I know that you could. Yeah, I'm saying Cedric as a backup option. It's not leaving us with no one. It's not like Meunier leaving and you have to play Timo Kehrer at right.
No, I agree. But with Cedric there, you may as well be left with no one. And I said this when we bought him, and people are now starting to see this, is that there's a reason why Saints were not fussed with him leaving at all, period. He's not good enough to start and actually be on that
defensively.
I would rather start Maitland-Niles than Cedric. And I'm not confident in Maitland-Niles over the course of a season. And I'm happy to be proven wrong.
But you can't just not sell a player because it means that you're left weak in that area, because you can re-strengthen in that same window.
No,
I think he's just saying it's a consideration when you're dealing with the price.
And it's not that you can't do it, but when you're in a position where clubs know you need something, they're going to overcharge you. That's the point. So now when Leicester try to go replace Chilwell, they're either going to have to go buy a right back and put him at left back, or they're going to get charged through the nose for a left back because everyone knows it's Christian Fuchs or Bucks or bust rather. That's the problem. That's the flip side of it. So that's what I mean by you have to kind of look at it and say, if you plan out your entire squad, if you literally just write it down and look at the options and say, well, this is what we have. If this doesn't work out, we're absolutely screwed. Club, I guarantee you other clubs will do the same thing.
And this is all all of this goes into the consideration. They look at risk, and they look at what, they do a risk assessment of what happens, and they really have to look at Arteta's view on this and say, Arteta, look, if we're going to do this, we need to make sure that you think that Ainsley Maitland-Niles will be the one that could hold down that right back spot. And at this point, I think that it is a little bit of a throw of the dice, like Drew was saying. I think we all rate the player, and most of the people on this channel rate Mainsley, but it's a question of whether he can do it consistently. And something Owen brought up that I think is a great point is it going to be a situation where, half a season down the road, he's going, I don't want to play on the right back anymore. I want to play centrally, which he said many other times. And then now do we have an issue with a player who we've just signed on a long-term deal now, who's asking for more money because he's an England international and he's not happy with where he's playing, and that now Cedric's the only backup. That's a concern. But like I said, if it means that we get the players that I think we need like a party type player now more than we need Bellerin, in my opinion. That's in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. I think that the midfielder is a transformative position for the club at the moment, and right back isn't the priority to replace. And that's why if we don't end up selling Bellerin, I still think that you can get a decent amount of money for the sales that you'll get from moving on the likes of Lucas Torreira, for instance, as a player, or Matteo Guendouzi, or you'll get a little bit from Socrates, and maybe even Holdings, loan fee to Newcastle, or Chambers if he's moved on. There are players in the squad that can be sold. Reece Nelson's another one for me that could be moved on for a decent sized fee. So when you look at the players that can be sold, I think that there are others available. The issue right now is that it's difficult to see interest in those players consistently. And the only player that we're seeing besides Hector Bellerin is Lucas Torreira and Socrates, whose value is exceptionally low. Matteo Guendouzi, as we talked about, and Drew, this highlights a point that you brought up, is that if you know that a player is actively available for sale, then their value on the market diminishes because clubs will know that you want to move him on. And that's the issue that it's been with Matteo Guendouzi, that when he joined, after a single season at Arsenal, Matteo Guendouzi's value was probably at the peak of its time during his career. Now it's at a point where his behaviour and his attitude and his demeanour has left him in a place where the club wants to move him on, and any club that comes in for him is going to have to take on board that baggage at the same time, meaning the club can get much less of a fee for him, and therefore we've not been able to move him on. And it's an exponentially feedback loop in this situation that Arsenal have left themselves kind of on the back foot in negotiations regarding Matteo Guendouzi, and in some circumstances Lucas Torreira as well, by not giving him, in my opinion, enough minutes in competitions where he could have played more. Yes, he was injured, but I still think that we kind of missed the boat on giving Torreira the opportunities, especially under Unai Emery, in the correct position. Arteta's not been able to do that because he's had to stick with Xhaka and Ceballos in the first team, but we ruined Lucas Torreira under Unai Emery, playing him in such an advanced role that it's left us so on the back foot with any negotiations in the future, and it's not been really recoverable even after Arteta's come in. So it's a real struggle to see how Arsenal turn this around. I mean, Owen, let's be mean and ask you, how do Arsenal turn around their financial view in the eyes of other clubs?
I think it's a near impossible task at the minute. You did a show last week going over some of the values of the players that we could possibly look to move out, and what I found shocking was for a club of our stature and the company we keep in terms of the teams that we often be named with is the lack of value within our squad. You know, apart from, maybe a handful, all our players seem to be valued between 10 and 20 million pound, which, as I say, if you go, let's say you look at a Liverpool, a Man City, even a Man United, their squad value collectively is so much higher than ours. And I think it's just a case now that the club almost have to just scrap it and start again. I understand there's a lack of money there in the current climate, but there's sort of no other way around it. It's just important, as we constantly hear you preach about, bringing in people with resale value. But look, again, I've said this, it's about us not getting sentimental. Like, again, I'll say this, Hector Bellerin is someone who's divided opinion for years at Arsenal, but he puts a couple of good games back together, and as much as I like him and like what he has done, I'm the same. I'm guilty of it. We get sentimental now that he's being linked out of the club. We're all losing their shit, and everybody's just panicking, and for me, it's a case of, we'll put it like this. I'll boil it down to this. If you were to ask me who would I sell between Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Hector Bellerin, I would say Hector Bellerin. Not because I think that Ainsley's much better, or if better at all, but I think that they probably both have equal advantages and disadvantages. It's just that I think Hector Bellerin is so marketable in today's game, especially if you're selling him to someone like PSG. The fashion's booming in France, and they love smoking cigarettes and stuff over there, so he'd fit right in. So
yeah,
it's just I think it's just a case now of us having to be. We'll have to be sneaky in the market and try and squeeze as much value out of, unvaluable players as we can.
Yeah, I think the point stands with the goalkeeper. Like you talked about, who would you rather sell, Bellerin or Mainsley? I agree with you. I'd rather move on Bellerin. Of course, I know I take Drew's point about the weakening that position, but in just hypothetical terms, if you'd rather sell one or the other, I would sell Bellerin because of the market value being that significantly much higher to reinvest elsewhere. It's the same thing for me with Martinez and Leno. I said I would prefer that we moved on Leno for a significantly higher fee than Martinez, reinvested part of that in bringing in a potentially really good young goalkeeper as a backup that can still play a decent amount of minutes at a really good level in the cup competitions. Because I just feel that Martinez in the long term, I see at Arsenal more than I do Leno. And for that reason, I think cash in now whilst Leno's stock is at its highest, because if Martinez takes over that number one position for the foreseeable future, Leno's value is only going to drop. So that was my view. I can see Drew's unmuted and ready to pounce. Go on, son.
I don't understand the logic. I kind of feel like some of this is a biased viewpoint on Bellerin for any number of reasons why. For me, people are talking about the fact that midfield is a more important building block for us this summer, and I don't disagree with that. But yet you'd rather sell a right back to move a natural midfielder into a right back to then maybe or maybe not bring in Thomas Partey or Hassam Aouar. That doesn't make any sense. I would rather not sell Bellerin. I would rather give Maitland-Niles an avenue into playing in midfield, which is his natural position, where all his technical and physical qualities come more into the fore than at right back, which actually improves us. I think, and I just said this in the chat, I think we actually pseudo got forced into this deal. It was all but everyone reported it was all but done that Maitland-Niles was going to Wolves for 20 million, roughly like 25 million, whatever the price that was going to be agreed on. Between that point, PSG came in with a larger fee offer for a player in a position we have 3 players in, and I think we pressed pause on the Maitland-Niles sale and told them, wait a minute, if Bellerin leaves, we actually really need you. You're going to be starting. It might be at right back, but you're still going to be starting. So I don't think that. I think it's the club simply looking at what can we get the most money for. It's not that Bellerin wouldn't be the first choice right back if he stayed. It's that the club needs money. I think that's what's happening. I don't think it's anything other than that. But I think keeping both would actually serve us better than either option, and look to try to push forward with moving on someone like Torreira. Instead of loaning Holding, if he has no future, sell Holding. That kind of thing. I don't know. But
let me just come to the defense very quickly before I let John come in on the. I want to come to the defense of the chat box and what that was saying. I don't think they're suggesting sacrificing a position to bring in a midfielder. I think what the option is that people would rather see Bellerin move on if it meant us signing Partey and Maitland-Niles moving to right back. In a world where you had 2 options of either keeping the midfielders that we have and Bellerin, or selling Bellerin with Maitland-Niles playing at right back and Partey coming in, I think that is a more desirable situation for the club.
But my question is why? Because you can just sell Maitland-Niles and still get Partey, and then keep Bellerin, who's the better established right back. That's my point.
That's the thing. I don't think you would sell Maitland-Niles for enough to guarantee bringing in Partey. I think the money that you would get for Bellerin guarantees a deal of the level of Partey, whereas Maitland-Niles doesn't.
Not if PSG doesn't budge. If PSG doesn't budge, it's going to be the same money for Bellerin that we were going to get for Maitland-Niles. So what does that solve?
Hypotheticals again, and we have to wait for the
fee. But if you're looking at if the fee goes up and PSG like here's 40 million, take or leave it, then even I would take it because of the other issues we've just discussed. But if the fee doesn't go up, and we're going to get the same money for Bellerin that we were going to get for Maitland-Niles, it makes more sense to sell Maitland-Niles. And then I don't know. That's just my opinion now.
Go on, John.
Yeah, I was going to say actually.
We're done now.
No, it's already been discussed. I would just say that I would rather have a midfielder that actually has shown that he can consistently do it throughout a season, like a Partey or someone, than give it to Ainsley Maitland-Niles. As romantic as it would be to finally see him get his wish in the midfield, I don't think that should be our plan going forward, which is just something I think Drew mentioned offhand, and I just want to address it. And just to kind of touch on your guys' little debate there, I think that there's positives and negatives to both aspects of that. And I think that when you're looking at it from the club's point of view, they need to, and I mentioned this before, and I'm going to come back to it because I think it's that important. We need to strengthen the midfield, especially the holding aspect of it, way more than we need to keep the strength of our right back position right now. If we were talking about Tierney, for example, and whether we sell Tierney right now, I feel like it's a very different conversation than if we were to, even if we had another backup for him. So that's something to consider as well, that it's not that big a deal if Bellerin leaves, in my opinion, if we strengthen it, which is my key point throughout this whole thing. We have to strengthen it correctly. Whether we do that or not, I guess time's going to tell that. But yeah, I think that's a dead horse at this point.
But do you see with even Ainsley, I'll touch on this. Put it like this, Drew. The way I would say it, as you said, Ainsley sees himself as a midfielder. I see myself as a solid 10, good-looking guy, but what I think doesn't matter, I've been told I'm a 5, and that's what I am. So no, but joking aside, even with Ainsley moving to right back in the long term, for example, what I would be doing is this season looking to cash in on Bellerin, as you said, to secure that sort of level of a Partey deal, moving Mainsley to right back, and I still don't think that he is the long-term solution to the right back problem. And as you said, Tom, you give Mainsley another year's experience playing with Arsenal in the Premier League, hopefully in a side that will achieve much more and do better, and rack up a few national games with the English setup. And I think if anything, his value increases, and we have another valuable asset to move on and strengthen again in the right back position. So that's the way I would be looking to maybe do it.
I can't disagree. I can't disagree. I think that I know that me and Drew don't see eye to eye on this. I just feel that the trade-off of Mainsley playing at right back, if it meant signing a player on the level of Partey, and I get that if the fee for Bellerin is in the region of 25 million, it may not enable that. And I'm talking only in the hypothetical situation in which the sale of Bellerin would mean a Partey level player came in that midfield, because the right back position has, even with Bellerin there, for me, is still far from perfect. Even with Bellerin in that position, for me, he's not of a consistent high level to be our best right back right now. Not in terms of what we've got, but in terms to be one of the best right backs in the league. He's not at that level anymore that he was before his injury. I just feel that if, no matter what it took to get in a midfielder that transforms us in a similar way to how I saw Bruno Fernandes change Manchester United. It's a different position, but it's what they desperately needed was that player. And it got them into the Champions League effectively last season. And I just see a Partey-style player being that same catalyst for us this season. And it's such a priority for us to do it. If we sign Willian, Gabriel, and obviously bringing in Saliba as well. If we bring in, who's the other guy that we've signed so far as well? I'm forgetting someone.
Ceballos,
thank you. I just feel that that's not a successful window. It's not a successful window because it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't make us that much better. Even with the signing of Gabriel, because midfield is so weak. It's such an integral part of a team to be successful that if we don't strengthen there, it ruins us. And I would be willing to sacrifice Bellerin and risk Mainsley at right back if it meant bringing in someone on the level of Partey.
But that brings both of your positions together, by the way. So that concern that Drew has about Mainsley at right back, and your point, which I echoed earlier, about the need for strengthening the midfield and the justification of making this deal if it means we can strengthen the midfield, are things that are going to go into consideration that are going to increase the price. The uncertainty of Mainsley at right back is going to be a factor in our valuation of Bellerin. It's not just the player and what he's done, it's what we're going to be bringing in, which is what I was mentioning earlier. It's a very fluid process, and I think that both of those statements can exist simultaneously in the context of this transfer and be a consideration for what the value of Bellerin is, which is the whole point of this.
You're playing peacemaker. I like it, John. But one thing. Here's one for you. Sorry for you, Drew. Just before you go. Really
Drew's like...
I know he's ready to go. No, but it's just a question, because we discussed this a few weeks ago and everybody was all for it. If I turn around to you and says that we were to swap Lacazette for Partey or to sell Lacazette to make way for Partey, everybody's fine with that. But we want to move where we don't want to move on a right back that has, even caused debate in terms of his level of performances over recent years, to a striker who has won off season and probably has a higher market value. I don't get why we would be okay moving Lacazette on in comparison to Bellerin.
Because you're not potentially downgrading who your center forward is. If you move Lacazette on, you're going to be you likely will shift Oba essentially. And at that point, you're not getting worse, or you're not potentially getting worse. And because we just brought in Willian, who can play on the left, or you give Saka that starting berth on the left, or you have Martinelli who comes in. It's the two situations aren't the same. We're way better off with left wing options and a center forward option than we are at right back. And my point here is, I don't disagree that you need to strengthen the spine. The whole point is you can't potentially weaken one part of the squad to strengthen another. You're supposed to have strength in both. So my issue
outweighs the loss. So I'm just saying.
Also, just let me finish the goddamn point. My point is, and I'm also frustrated because people in chat pissed me the fuck off today, and I'm sorry for the the language, but I'm kind of getting annoyed with people.
I've already blown
That's
it.
beside the
Displaced
point.
anger on this. This is the
My-
displaced
my-
anger.
My other issue here is that if you look at a club like Spurs, who we all laud the business they've done over the last couple of windows, but for a while they had that same theory that if you have a really good midfield, you'll be just fine. But they're absolutely dog shit on both left and right fullback, and they got rinsed there week in, week out. And look how many chances they would give away constantly because they had poor right backs and poor left backs. It doesn't matter that they had Dembele in midfield, Christian Eriksen, whoever it might be. They had a very good spine, but they were so weak on the flanks that it caused them torrid times constantly, especially against better teams. So we're looking at a potential similar scenario if Maitland-Niles doesn't work. And it's not that he won't or that he's not capable of it. It's the question that he might not. And my point was that we know that Bellerin, when he's fit, does. So and it's not that I think that we should start Maitland-Niles as Xhaka's partner in midfield. No, but he still has value as being someone who can play midfield. He also can play right back. He also can play left back. He can play even further up the pitch if we need him to. He's probably the only person in the squad that has that type of versatility. And every club that's of a certain level in Europe has players, multiple players like that can fill in roles when and if you need. So I still think they both should be kept. And there's enough that players on the squad that we can get rid of. If we push, we might have to take a hit. But if you sell 4 players that are a reduced fee, you don't have to sell 1 player at a high fee. And then
I
you
like
can still
this
get players back in.
I like this position because it's a very unpopular one. Because basically it means, listen, I don't care if it means we don't get a Partey or we'll keep Bellerin, which I feel like, it's kind of like everyone wants a new shiny thing. No, and I think if we can't though, would you? So here's the thing. So let's just say that we hypothetically, Ainsley Maitland-Niles steps in and he's just not as good as Bellerin was, right? Yeah. So there is a marketable, not necessarily like fatal, but a noticeable deficiency in right back now that we sell him. But it means our midfield strengthens significantly and we get a Partey. Do you make that deal if the money's right, or do you not risk it and keep Bellerin, in your opinion?
I think it's tough because the variable that keeps spinning in my head is that even if we sell Bellerin, because it's clear that we're not just after Partey, and we still don't know what we're going to sell. If we've done all our business for the window, say some ungodly other universe, this already happened and Awa came in already, and we had this money, we showed like I said, we reinvested in Awa, and then we're only after Partey left. I think you're looking at a very different question. Yeah, that's the thing. There's like two very large debates here. It depends on what we're going to try to do. If we get Partey, what are we doing after Partey? Is he the last piece? Are we done after that? Do we have more to do after that? So it's not like a cut and dry answer. That's the question. And then for me, like I said, again, it's almost kind of like you have to go with business that you can get done. And that's kind of why in other chats I brought up the Van de Beek thing, because Van de Beek, while he's not Thomas Partey and he's not like Hassam Aouar, he's still a very good young center midfielder who is one you could say we needed, and he's probably the cheapest of the 3. So what happens if this whole time, just to postulate, this whole time that Partey and Aouar were almost kind of like, well, we like them, but the real target was Van de Beek because he's more financially viable and he still improes us. But we didn't get him.
So he's overrated.
Well, fair enough. But the whole point is the fact that if we were so tied to getting Thomas Partey, we wouldn't be targeting Donny Van de Beek. It would be Partey or bust. But we're still looking out there and saying there's still other viable options, irrespective of if we sell or not. Because if it's true that we came in for Van de Beek, it would have been happening before the Bellerin nonsense, or before maybe before it ends now. So I think the club just kind of recognizes and understands that we need a center midfielder, and I don't disagree with that. But I also don't want to weaken one position to strengthen another, because if you look at, Arteta came out and said he wants to challenge for Champions League. First of all, that's ambitious as hell, but I love the fact that it was ambitious, and I think we're a club that should be challenging for top 4, for winning the league, for Champions League moving forward. And it's clear you need a really good midfielder to do that. That's one of the keys about any club that goes on to win major trophies is that in the spine, they're very solid, but they're also very good everywhere else as well. So I just kind of feel like there could be another avenue to where we don't risk right back while we're still improving in center midfielder. And it might just mean we don't get Thomas Partey. We could just go out and get another midfielder. It doesn't have to be Partey. And I think that's the thing that frustrates me. No. I mean, a good squad player, but not to start. And I think someone brought it up in the chat. I think it was Ride Dog that brought up in the chat.
Don't give Ride Dog airtime. I get
shush. No. It wasn't Ride Dog. It was Avon. It was Avon that said it.
Yeah, that's
right. Once the fan base caught wind of that we were after Thomas Partey, the only player they wanted was Thomas Partey. That's half the problem. There are other really good midfielders you can bring in that improve us to a level immediately, not just long term, that aren't him, that are cheaper.
Yeah, but Tom already did a tactical breakdown on him, so we got
it. He did, so now we have to get him. So now it's not even the club that's like, remember in the days gone by in transfer markets where we were linked with a player and we would spend weeks and months trying to push that deal through. It never happened. And in the last minute, we scrambled and brought in someone who was 95% worse. Now the club is being sensible and looking at multiple options. Look how many midfielders we've been linked with this summer. 5-6 midfielders. So it's clear that we're looking around. It's the fan base that are so tied with getting Partey in. I think you can't look at it that way.
I'm so tired.
Tied and tired. Yes, tied and tired, both. So
we were promised this deal so long ago by our ITK brothers and sisters. So we were so promised this. Like, honestly, it's ridiculous. I just don't get why it's taken this long for. Like, we know what we need to do. The club knows what Atletico want from us. They want 50 million euros, and if you aren't getting 50 million euros, you aren't getting Partey. So why this is dragged on? Oh, you know what I really hate? I hate the
potholes. You hate potholes.
The new Moley. I hate potholes. I hate Moley, and I hate his new account sitting there all proud, going, "Oh, we're going to sign Partey next week," but actually, we're not going to sign Partey at all. And they're just guessing, and people just lap it up like the gerbil. Everyone was all the gerbil, and now you see what's happened to the gerbil. So honestly, it's just I hate ITK so much.
Have you seen a rise and fall as significant and impressive as the gerbil?
No, it's almost like Unai Emery.
The gerbil. Okay, best quote: "The gerbil is the Unai Emery in the nose."
Chris P says, gutted we didn't get Donny van der Beek. Dean would have got him and 50 million for him. No, we wouldn't, because we have no money. that is all it is. We have absolutely no money. I need to thank a new member for joining up in the whole chaos of all that. Harry, thank you ever so much for joining up as a member. Make sure you tune into the community tab if you want to join us. I mean, no one wants to join us now.
We're not usually this volatile, I promise.
No, this is just, I've loved it, to be honest. I think it's been great. Well, other than the 1% of idiots in the chat box today, but other than that, it's been absolutely fine. I have to say 99% of the chat box, your debates have been absolutely fantastic today. And genuinely, we really appreciate all of you, nearly all of you, for being in there, except Rydog. So,
just as he's saying the show has been excellent, you say.
There you go. I feel like he comes on just to disagree with me. It's just, I see you, Ride Dog. I see what you do. Avon says, thing is, Arteta's special power is improving players. Be excited about younger, high-seeing players coming into the midfield. Mikey said, it's a full moon, lads. We've got an excuse. It's all different on here. Jasmine said, Drew, my bro, I finally followed you on Twitter today. So, Drew, you've got another follower, son. There you go. Find him on Twitter at FM Lara. You can find John at 305cast, and you can find Owen at Owen Young too. I say you can find him. Try spelling Owen's name. It is EOIN. So good luck with that one. Boys, we've come to the point in the show where I'm going to give you a chance to give a shout out to upcoming pieces, past pieces, things you're excited about going up on the website. We are going to have a quick debate about something else before we wrap up, but just before we do, Drew, how did the quick fire pieces go?
One is out, but the others are on hold because I have 4 pieces I have to write for Get German Football Network over the next 48 hours. So
I think I was going to take some of those, and I need to get on that as well for Spanish.
You don't write for Get German Football. Are you doing previews for Spain? You doing previews? Yeah, I've got
got Real
I mean, if you're
Madrid
interested in German football, I'm writing previews on Dortmund, Köln, Stuttgart, and Schalke, which is going to be a bit of a piss take on my end, but that's going to be fun anyway. So, so I've got 4 of those to write. So if you're interested in that, those will be posted, and you can always just check my account for the link and such. So
there you go. So make sure you check that stuff out. John, what have we got coming up?
So I'm just putting the final touches on an interview I did with Brian, who started the Netherlands Schooners. So they're a big group of unofficial group of Arsenal supporters in the Netherlands, and he was talking about growing up there, and we talk a little bit about like RVP and all of that fun stuff, and Dennis Bergkamp, obviously. But it's a great interview. I'm just putting some final touches on it. Yeah, should be good.
Good stuff. Owen, who did you release? Who did we release on Friday, and who is your next target?
Friday, we released my Dennis Bergkamp bio, and it was both fun and extremely depressing looking back at Dennis Bergkamp. One, because it makes you realize how old you're getting, and 2, to realize that the difficulty we're ever going to have to get a player of that caliber in our side again. He's just one of a kind. But this week I will have my bio coming out on Emi Martinez, and I thought I'd choose Emi Martinez is because I hear people saying a lot of sort of blanket statements like, "Oh, did you see him crying because of he came from sort of humble beginnings, or he's been out on loan this many times?" But really, we don't know exactly the details of why the position that he's in now means so much to him. And I just thought I'd sort of dive into seeing what his upbringing was like, and the reason why he was getting so emotional, and why this means so much to him right now. So you can check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to reading that piece on Emi. If you can't wait till Friday, some additional listening I would recommend is Emi Martinez's interview with Graham Hunter on the Big Interview podcast. It was fantastic listening to Emi speak about his childhood. But Owen will be giving you some extra juicy stuff on the Argentinian too, as well as John's interview and Drew's pieces coming up. In terms of me, Drew's going to love this. I'm going to write some pieces about market value of players. So this could be a little bit interesting.
I'm just going to tell you how you're wrong on everything, and that'll be it. Just
yeah, that's fine. I've seen a lot of writers getting backlash today, so it's going to be interesting. Jasmine says, "Is there no news on Gabriel today?" Which is finally nice to be over, isn't it? So we've got about 5-ish minutes to go. I wanted to extend this pod a bit longer because it's been an absolute pleasure so far. If you've got any questions for the boys, throw them in, and we'll try and go through some quick fire, and I really mean quick fire this time. John, let's start with you. Javier Landaverde says, if Ceballos is coming because he was guaranteed minutes and because he cares about starting not at Real Madrid, does that mean we won't go for another top midfielder and we settle with him?
I don't know if I would consider settle, because I think he's a quality midfielder, but I think that the answer to that is potentially. I think that that it's a big question mark as to what we're going to do in terms of midfield, especially if we've guaranteed Ceballos starting time.
Yeah, I think that you have to look at him as a coup rather than saying we're settling with Ceballos. He is a quality player, and you take him for granted because we've had him for a year, I think.
It's a good question, though. Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. Owen, Balaji says, for the panel, if not Bellerin, which player from the current squad would you sell to recoup the fee for Partey?
Oh, probably Lacazette. Probably short and sweet. But that, as it says before, I'm not sure he's prolific enough in the system.
Yeah. Right, Dog says, question for Drew. If you could swap Partey for Bellerin, would you do it? I think that's the only answer you're going to get, right, Dog, but I will ask you a fair question. What position is more crucial to Arteta's tactics, right back or centre midfield?
That's actually a really good. No. That's actually a really good question, because if you're looking at how we use right backs, our right backs underlap, not overlap. So you could, and our centre mids usually, you saw from Ceballos, they're usually tasked with coming deeper, connecting centre backs, spraying passes. They don't really drive play. I think we would have one that would drive play if we had a midfield 3, but because in the midfield 2, I think our right back is actually more important because they're becoming that extra midfielder when we're in possession. So I would actually say it's more important.
John Avon Tellington says, how long is it going to take to integrate our new centre-backs, Saliba and Gabriel, into the team, do you think?
That's a good question, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. And look, I think we're going to start off with the back three. Let me put it that way. And I think Luiz, especially with Gabriel, is going that Brazilian connection. I think the language barriers is not going to be. I don't want to call it a barrier, but it's definitely going to be something that's going to help him settle in quicker. And I can't think of a better leader than David Luiz to be alongside of for a young player like Gabriel and Saliba. Remember, it's not like we just signed him. I know it feels like a new signing, but he's trained with the team before. Obviously, the partnership between him and Gabriel is going to be the real question. I know that Gabriel speaks a little French, so maybe that'll help. And Arteta speaks French, so all of that language thing is something to consider. But I hope so, because I think that's one of the most important partnerships on the pitch is between the center backs, and they seem pretty confident and whatever, but you never know. So I don't think it's going to take very long. Let me put it that way. They're both very, very talented, and they seem to have a lot of drive. Plus, with David Luiz there, I think it's going to make it a lot easier for them.
Yeah, I think what you look at is the small contingent of Brazilian players we've got now in Willian and Martinelli and David Luiz and now Gabriel. It's good to have those kind of little clicks, just so you've got that extra bedding in process made that much easier in that sense. Because mental health, specifically for players, is a really big thing, and genuinely will help them settle. To have people around that are going to support them is really important. Just scrolling up to see if I've missed any. Owen Pramod N says, "Do you think there's any credibility on the Saudi link of Ozil?"
Very short, no. I think there could be an offer there, but look, Ozil is just after having a baby. He's very settled in London. His wages are mental here. I don't know, especially after the Ornstein interview. I think he's dead set to even prove a point and just sit here and get his money. I really don't think he's in a rush to move on to play football.
For sure. Last question then from Peter Renner. Drew, less of a question, more of an observation. Bellerin has been poor really for a while. Would you agree this is down to a lack of competition?
That face says it all. I agree with that face.
Yeah, I don't think poor is the right word.
He hasn't. Christ on a bike. I'm not. Whatever.
That would be an
Jesus Christ.
I agree. I don't think he's been poor. I don't think that's the right word. I think people aren't as accepting of how he's been since the injury and aren't taking that on board as much.
Okay.
I really
also
don't.
Not for nothing. You can count on half of one hand how many players haven't been poor over the last 12 to 24 months. It's been a squad issue. Everyone was poor under Emery, with the exception. Even Oba wasn't even playing great, despite that he was scoring goals. No one has been good in the last.
It was
give or take 2 years at the club, really. So
it was Saka's fault in the Community Shield for a lot of Bellerin's mistakes, for him being overrun a lot. A lot of people criticize Bellerin, but I'm telling you, rewatch the game. He had no cover.
You even see Xhaka yelling at Saka a couple times for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but no one wants to blame the kid. They want to blame the person they want to leave. So standard bullshit. Anyway, so we can move on.
But if it's an injury thing, I think that there's some legitimacy there. He's been less good than he was before his injury, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, but I don't think he's not been fully recovered either.
Correct.
We have to see. It takes players a year to be fully 100% after an ACL. So this season, if he does stay, would be the sort of the gauntlet throw. Either he would be back to his best, or he wouldn't be. There's only one way to find out. So.
There's also sort of the emphasis that you've seen players like Mustafi and Xhaka really improve under Arteta, and maybe the impact of the Spaniard coming in hasn't had that same exponential growth on Bellerin, which may highlight that he's not improved as much. But as Kitchener said, I think we can agree he has improved as the season has gone on, for sure. But as Drew says, you can't not take into account how poor the whole team has been over the last 2 years, besides give or take the last 6 months. So that must be taken into account. You just can't slate a player for being not so great when the whole squad has been poor. People
use the same stick to beat Xhaka with. When they wanted to criticize him, they looked at him instead of the structure of the entire team and poor performances around him. But it's the same. It's the same narrative, different players. So
it is. It's an annoying narrative. I think, thankfully, and what we usually see from most of the people in the chat box is that I think a lot of people have seen from the shows that we've done, the discussions that we have, and the tactical breakdowns, that we are doing better to look at players in a certain way. I mean, when I took over the show, like, what was Mustang 2016, the amount of abuse certain players would have got in the chat would have been amazing. So I feel that now we've obviously grown our audience to a position now where it is much better. We've had a couple of morons today, but other than that, it's been absolutely fine. So I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much to our brand new members. I should highlight those on the screen so you get your little bit of 5 minutes or 5 seconds of fame, I suppose. Thank you to all you guys, especially that one in the middle there, Owen Young. I thought
Yay.
But we had a few new members sign up recently. Iron Cub, of course, recently became a TGT expert member. Robert Parker also rejoined us too. Gunnar S became an expert member. Daniel Robert, an expert member too. And then today we saw True Guna, Em Yusufi, and Harry also join up to be members. So thank you ever so much, everyone. I'll make sure your names are added to the list of expert members at the nearest and earliest convenience. Thank you, Drew. I know we didn't see eye to eye on many things, but I thought it made for an excellent show. So
yeah, of course, it's always good to be here. You're good.
Exactly. Good stuff, mate. John, always a pleasure, my son.
Always. Hopefully, just you avoid some potholes in the future. So
just let it go.
No.
I haven't sworn on this show for a good 2 years, and that pothole did it. So,
yeah, that was fascinating.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff.
I didn't even know you knew how to swear. So
I don't know what the word means. I genuinely, it's just a reaction. It's just like breathing.
Yeah. It's probably where the word came from. It just was this natural reaction to potholes.
Oh, don't. Owen, thank you so much for tuning in. I always say tuning in to my guests like you've just tuned in to watch. But thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It felt like I was listening to Mummy and Daddy fighting there, me and John.
I was trying to mediate it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Do you want to know what? I think I'm bringing the aggression now, so we'll have a charity boxing match come the end of the year. Tom and Drew can sort this out in the ring.
Tom will lose in the first 30 seconds of the first round. It's fine.
Ooh.
God, sit on me. It wouldn't be fair.
What have you done, Owen?
Oh dear, he's thrown the gauntlet. I'll tell you what, I'll beat you on FIFA. We'll do that.
Interesting gauntlet. Okay. Well, you play on the child's platform on Xbox.
We should give a shout out to the gerbil. the Gooners versus Cancer account. That is around at the moment. It is a really good cause, I should say. And do go check it out. It's supporting leukemia and the fight against it. So it's not supporting leukemia, it's supporting the fight against leukemia. So it's a really good cause you should go check out. And there's a FIFA tournament going on at the moment. I won my group. It had Ellis Mel in, and I'm happy to bash him on this. Good old ABW Ellis Mel. Beat him today twice in a row. It was quite nice. Aggregate score of 7-1, I think it was. Finished my group, 6 wins from 6, 36 goals scored, 3 goals against.
Are you proud?
I am proud. I haven't played FIFA in ages. It was great. I loved it. I'm going to get knocked out in the round of 16 and I won't mention it ever again, so it's fine. And obviously Owen's playing in it as well, so you can keep up with both of our progress. I'm sure we'll give you an update. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you guys. As always, drop a like on the video. Give us guys a follow at FM Lara at 305cast. Now Owen, that's EOIN. Young 2, and of course at the Gooner Talk TV. We'll speak to you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.